This is Deep Blue, where we get the true life stories of BYU athletes, coaches, and fans. Here's your host, Jarom Jordan.
On today's show, I talk with a guy who had all the pressure in the world to play baseball and still did. A kid who had a game-winning shot in high school basketball with multiple NBA players on the floor, and now works internationally, working in baseball. He is the one and only Adam Law. Adam, what's up, man?
What's up, Jarom? Thanks for having me, brother.
It's good to hang out. You and I go back a long ways because when you were in high school, Spencer Linton and I were helping call some of the Provo High games in baseball and basketball. It was super fun. That was a formative time, obviously, for you as a player, but for us as broadcasters to be like, what are we doing? And there were some fun teams that you played on, man.
Right, yeah. We still sometimes pull up those old videos, and we always chuckle at you and Spencer's suits. Big old long,
terrible
baggy suits on the side of the court. It was awesome.
Like 06, 07, we're covering Provo High, we're covering Timpview, and you played on some great teams. The basketball teams you played on, what, 2-time state champ? Remind me.
Yeah, 2 times, and lost the third one when I was a sophomore.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kyle Collinsworth, Brandon Davies. That was a fun group. Craig Drury's the coach. He's an all-timer. What was it like to play basketball? You were a baseball player, but what was it like to play basketball on those teams?
Yeah, basketball in high school was definitely my favorite sport.
Over baseball?
By far.
Would you have preferred to play basketball in college if you could have?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
You were just a better baseball player.
Better baseball player, and I call myself 6 feet, but I'm really 5'11". So, but yeah, high school basketball, loved it. Chris Collinsworth, let's not forget about Chris as well.
Chris's senior year, he was a monster.
Yeah, monster, and then playing with the young bucks, Brandon and Kyle.
Chris is going to kill me if he is.
Yeah, it was fun to have those guys around, man. Like, obviously on the high school team, and then AAU and travel ball with those guys, having some height around, and like it just made my job easy as a little point guard and the shooter to give it up to those guys, let the defense collapse, and then kick it out when they wanted to.
We're going to talk a lot about you in this, but let's talk about Kyle and Brandon for a sec. So Chris is Gatorade Player of the Year, state champion, beat Payson. It was awesome, which is super funny, actually. In that state title game, I remember Payson misses a would-be tying 3, and then Chris just flings it up from half court and goes in at the buzzer, so the margin's like more than it would have been. That was super random, right?
Right. How do you remember that?
I don't know. And then he went into the stands. So you're a what, sophomore on that team?
Junior.
Junior, okay.
Yeah, junior.
Yep. And then the next year, I think Kyle goes from like 5'9", 150 to like 6'4", 180 or something in like a summer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what he ate, but all of a sudden, Brandon goes from being, his shoes looked like they were like 4 sizes too big, and he's missing all these bunnies, to one of the most dominant players in the state. And you're on that guard line, and it's just like awesome defense and tremendous execution on offense. It was incredible to watch.
Yeah, the famous Bulldog defense shut a lot of teams down.
The crowd would go, Bulldog defense, Bulldog defense, and chant it for like a minute because there's no shot clock.
Exactly, and then we'd get the ball and also take a minute to score sometimes, because our motto from Coach Drury was, we hold them to less than 10 and we score more than 10 every quarter, and we'll win every time.
In a game in the 40s, it's
so boring.
It's so boring, but it totally worked. There's like a gajillion banners in that gym. I was always intrigued by you as a guard because this was a really good idea. You wouldn't hug the 3-point line. You would sag off like, I don't think it was NBA range, but it was like close. And so no one would get a hand in your face, and then you'd make threes. At what point were you like, wait, this is my competitive advantage here?
Probably growing up, honestly, fortunate to have a gym in my house and just extend the 3-point line as far as I could. And probably as a youngster, I was shooting it from my hip, but that's probably where the hand-eye coordination came about, and then started to have some success in high school and just kind of extended until the defense wouldn't defend me. And yeah, I think that's kind of how it happened.
Well, you were the Steph Curry before Steph Curry. It's way out there, right?
Geez.
Minus the dribbling part.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you were getting a lot of good open shots. Let's talk about one of those open shots. So one game, I felt bad because I couldn't cover this game. Spencer graduates, moves on, he goes to Grand Junction. And so I'm like the head play-by-play. I'm like, sweet, I'm like the guy now that, Spencer's out. And so I have Drew Dowling and Brett Denham with me. But that night, BYU played Hartford in women's basketball, and I called the game. That's my first basketball play-by-play on BYUtv. This is the fall of 08, I want to say. Is that your senior year? Right?
Fall of 07.
07, 08. Okay.
Yep.
Jim Fredette's a freshman.
Exactly.
He's chubby, and a couple years later, he's that. The men play Hartford as well, and I sidelined that. So I'm like, oh, this is a big night for me as a student doing this. I miss this massive game of the 5A and the 4A state champs playing each other.
Yeah.
It's Provo at Lone Peak. It comes down to the wire. The ball is inbounded, and there are there are a couple NBA players on the court. I'm trying to remember. Had Justin Hamilton graduated?
No, he was on the floor.
Okay, there are 3 players on the court who eventually play in the NBA. Justin Hamilton for Lone Peak. You know Tyler Haws. You know Josh Sharp, Nate Austin, Bracken Funk, all those guys. There's Kyle Collinsworth, Brandon Davis. The ball comes into you, and you make a 3 to win the game. Remind me like the sequence of events there, because it was like amazing. And Brett Denham says, from Lawland!
That's where Lawland was coined. Yeah, Coach Jury, he drew up a play. I was probably the 4th option. I don't think I was the 5th option because I wasn't the man inbounding the ball. And a couple seconds left, I was more of just the outlet emergency guy that I don't know, I like to say 30 feet away. Now it's probably 24 or 25, but just kind of hanging out. And Brandon was covered. Kyle was covered, probably both double teamed. And I think Scott Edwards or somebody just kind of outletted me the ball from Lawland. And the best part is that Tyler Haas was out there, and he come running at me with the hand up, and I just drop it right in his face to win the game. Was pretty cool.
They call timeout. Ty gets like a half-court look that he misses. It's like the only miss of his career.
Right.
He's such an incredible player. Yeah, that was crazy, man. And Brett Denham, so I missed this game. I wanted to call that game. I missed it. I always felt bad. So I found out later kind of what happened. And I was like, what? Adam Law made the game-winning shot? That's awesome. And Brett, in his effort to say pandemonium, says,
"Oh, yes.
Pandalarium."
That's right.
So in my family, anytime there's something crazy, we just say it's Pandalarium.
Pandalarium. I love it.
So good memories. We did a few baseball games. We're like doing it out of a van, sitting behind the dugout. It's just real rinky-dink. But
you guys grinded.
But it was fun to just like get to know you guys. And I say you guys, it's you, it's Kyle and Brandon, obviously, but it's the Timpview guys too.
Yeah,
it's Bronson. Kafusi, and it's Chris Badger and the Bills, and like it was super fun. That was like a unique, special time when you look at Timpview is winning state championships in football. They have a pretty good basketball team. Some epic.
They had Big X Xavier.
He played at Suafilo.
Exactly.
Plays in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yep.
He played on those teams.
Yeah, there's some really good players. Like the battles you guys had.
The Reynolds brothers.
Oh, of course, the Reynolds brothers. Like, I dare say that was a really special time in the kind of history of Provo City athletics.
Yeah, for sure.
Who was the guy you got along with the best at Timpview, and then who was the guy you didn't? Where you were like, all right, let's battle in sports.
Bronson Kafusi was always, as we all know at BYU, just the most happiest, friendliest human. Yeah. And like, he was just this massive human being and would kind of body you up, but was just like so big and lovey. It's always fun to play against him. I always loved playing against Houston Reynolds. He played baseball when we were younger and could really hit the ball a long way. So I love those two guys. I don't say I didn't like everybody else, but just like it being a rivalry is just kind of hard to get along with. Bo Hunter. He's my friend now. I mean, we grew up, we're neighbors, but for whatever reason, he went away from Provo High and went to Timpview. And so that was always kind of a, hey, you left us, we're going to win the state championships. But now we always had some friendly battles, he and I.
Yeah, it was awesome. How do you feel about Provo High not being in the same location in Provo? It's different, right?
So different. Yeah, I've ridden my bike down there with my dad before, and it's just, yeah, it's weird to see how far away it is. And then, of course, coming down University Avenue, and Provo High is now property of BYU for whatever reason.
I don't
nobody
even know
knows.
What it's used for.
Nobody does.
Literally, nobody knows.
Yeah.
I know they give the COVID vaccine.
Right.
In the main gym, I think. So, the space where you have all these memories, it's like, yeah, okay, that's that. What else is it? I don't know what BYU's going to do with it, but I know they bought it.
Yeah.
Did the school district get the $25 million? I want to know where that money went, man. When people complain about money, I'm like, BYU bought a mountain and Provo High.
Kidding.
Like, there's some money to be had here.
No kidding.
Kalani Sitake is getting some of that now. Okay, so you graduate from high school. You've won like a gajillion state titles. It's a fun time. Then you go on your mission. Remind me, right out of before BYU, or do you play a year?
I played a year. I walked on.
You walked on.
Walked on. My dad was the coach.
The coach's son had to walk on.
Yeah, and
granted, baseball's weird. You have 11.7 scholarships.
Right, and I didn't mature. I was a late mature. I had like Salt Lake Community College offered me a walk-on spot as well, and
wait, no scholarship?
No
offers?
scholarship
in
offers
baseball.
In baseball.
In any sport?
In nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Really, I'm surprised by this.
Yeah, and it was probably a favor from my dad to even let me walk on. Was how I perceived it. If you were to ask him now, he would say, "Oh, well, I saw potential in you," but I mean, seeing the other players there, I was totally overmatched. I think I had like 6 at-bats as a freshman and then went on my mission.
Spoiler alert, Adam is drafted by the Dodgers later. So you're one of the guys that was no scholarship offers to draft pick. I mean, that's quite the story, which we'll get into in a second. Okay, so you're paying for everything as a freshman. You go on your mission. You get one of the more exotic mission calls, Zimbabwe. What was that like, man?
Yeah. Like the call or the experience?
All of it.
All of it. Whew. I do remember one of the few trips that I went on as a freshman. I think we were playing like University of Washington or something like that. My call came in the mail, not on the iPad like they do now, but just going home and open it up with a couple friends and my family. Zimbabwe I could read, but then the capital is called Harare, which I don't know, it was hard for me to read, so I stumbled across that, and I always wanted to go somewhere cool and learn a language, and so that mission call was just unbelievable. I was so fortunate to have had the experience opening it, and then just the experience serving in Southern Africa. Just, I mean, most missionaries I would assume would tell you that their mission was awesome, and mine was as well, and learned a ton. Physically matured, spiritually matured, emotionally matured, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
What's Zimbabwe like?
It's very humbling as far as where we come from here, and then you're just dropped in a third world country. You learn to appreciate the small things, but then you also learn to appreciate when people don't have what we have, yet they're so happy. And I think one of my favorite quotes is that it's been said of Africans that they have very little of what matters least, but have a great deal of what matters most. And you can see that in their little worldly possessions, but they have a ton of family relationships, cultural bonds, heritage, stuff like that, which really impacted my life.
That's amazing. I love that. And this year's men's basketball team has 3 players from Africa.
So
it's
cool.
It's super unique.
Yeah.
Tanzania, Mali, Nigeria. That's amazing. I dare
cool.
say no other team in the country probably has 3 African players, which is super awesome. What is it about sort of the African continent itself sort of has this kind of identity and brand, right? I don't know that every continent has the same situation. North America, we're not like, dude, North America, man. Like, we don't care.
Right. But
it feels like Africans are proud to be from Africa. What have you learned in your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember in the World Cup, whenever the World Cup for soccer is being played, I'll talk to my friends in Africa, and no matter which country is playing, they're cheering for, because they call that the United States of Africa. So if my friend is from, I don't know, Zimbabwe and Cameroon, or Egypt is playing, I mean, they're all in on these teams because of the heritage and just the overall bond and the unity that they all feel for each other is really special.
That's awesome. And it's cool because nowadays, obviously, with technology, FaceTime, Zoom, obviously airlines and whatnot, it feels like we're getting to see Africa more and more. What's the sense that you get in that? Because I've never been to Africa. I'd love to go one day. Or many days. It seems like it'd be an incredible experience.
Yeah, it surely is. And I, like you said, with the technology expanding. It's a lot easier to get over there. It's a lot easier to see that it's safe, that there's tons of cool places that you can go to that are virtually untouched. That is still really cool to experience. Yeah, it's a really special place.
How many countries in Africa have you been to?
Ooh, off the top of my head, I'd say 10 plus.
10 plus.
Yeah, I take some time to list them out, but I think 10 plus.
What are some of the countries?
South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Ghana.
It's pretty good.
10, yeah, 10.
What are some of the experiences you've had in Africa there that stick out? I haven't talked to too many people about Africa in my life. In fact, zero. This is the most I'm learning about Africa. This
All right. My wife and I visited Zanzibar, which is a small island off of Tanzania. And we went to a slave trade center, a former slave trade center that was abolished in like 1960.
1960?
1960.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, that's in the my father was born in 56, so it just kind of put things into perspective and was just like a really it was just a touching human experience to realize that my fellow human beings did such things to other human beings, but that like we can make changes for the better and look for ways to love deeper, to accept deeper, and to be more kind. That was the first experience that popped in my head when you asked. Yeah,
that's a really valuable lesson. Okay, so you come back from Zimbabwe. At what point are you a scholarship player? Do you become a scholarship player? You said you had matured physically. You get back. What's that experience like to try and, okay, I want to play baseball and eventually be drafted, which you were?
Yeah. Got back from my mission. My dad somehow found half tuition in scholarship for me. I have no idea if that was like a 20% thing or what. I don't know how I earned it because I had four or six at-bats, whatever it was, and played about half the games my sophomore year, and then went and played summer ball in a collegiate league in Palm Springs, which Spencer was, I think he was an anchor for one of the news stations. I saw him at church. I'm like, what is going on?
You went to the same ward?
Yeah, same ward.
Did you live with somebody, like a former Major League Baseball player or something?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
There are some former BYU baseball players who played with, I can't remember who it is, but a famous Major League Baseball player. I don't recall who it is off the top of my head, but it was somebody where I was like, oh, that's awesome. Not a member of the church, just like housed him for this league.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know who that could have been.
It'll come to me later, hopefully.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so played college summer ball for the Palm Springs Power, and that was the first time in my life that I had had consistent at-bats for an extended period of time. And that summer was when I started to turn some heads of scouts. Particularly, I think with my athleticism, I could really run, I could jump, throw hard, and my bat-to-ball skills were pretty good. And so I used that experience to propel myself into my junior year, which is funny because my dad was let go as the head coach. And Coach Littlewood came in and called me, I think one of the first days that he was hired, and said, hey, you're going to have to walk on again. Because I think my dad had saved some more scholarship money for me. But
what was that like?
Yeah, so I mean, I walked on again as a junior.
Emotionally, was that crazy? Your dad's let go. You could certainly fantasize about, well, my family's been wronged. I could transfer. James Empey had a similar experience when his dad, Mike, was fired as the offensive line coach. And he stayed, and I was like, oh, that was probably hard.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I had 2 university basketball coaches reach out and say, hey, we heard that your dad was let go. Would you be interested to play college basketball?
What? Wait, like 3 years later?
Yeah.
They're like, we saw the La Land clip.
Exactly. But it never really crossed my mind to leave. I think University of Utah reached out, baseball, and said, hey, we'd love to have you come play for us. A couple other teams reached out, I think University of New Mexico, Cal State, Northridge, some other teams.
Thinking you might be interested since your dad's out.
Since my dad was out. And it never really crossed my mind. And in a sense, it was almost a relief because I really struggled having the law umbrella, having my dad, my grandpa, my brothers were really good college players. And it was almost like, wow, I can take a breath of fresh air and go out and play my own game without having to worry about, I don't know, dad as the coach or whatever. And regardless of who thought about it that way, that's how I perceived it at that time. So, and Coach Littlewood was awesome for me. And I hope that I was awesome for him as well.
So let's talk about that umbrella. So for those that don't know, your grandpa, Vern, the Deacon, wins the Cy Young in 1960?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one Cy Young Award winner. Nowadays there's two, one for each league.
Right.
That's an incredible expence. Did they win the World Series that year?
They did, yeah.
They win dramatic fashion, right?
Bill Mazeroski home run.
Yeah, that's amazing. He's nicknamed the Deacon, which is super cool, repping the church. He's one of the first, there had been a few, but he's one of the first famous members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the professional level, right?
Yeah.
There weren't a ton.
No, he's probably the first notable member of the church in the athletic sphere.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then your dad, Vance, plays in the majors for a bunch of years, all-star. Who is it? Tim and Andrew play at BYU. They're really good. I think I called some games with Andrew. Tim's a little older. But, yeah, the benefit of that is great because it's like, hey, we're like a baseball family. We're a name. But you're third in line in your family and you're third generation in line. What are the pros and cons of that experience?
Yeah, I think right off the bat, the pros are you just grew up around the game and just kind of a product of what you guys talk about at the dinner table and what you do in the evenings. You watch a game or you go play a game. Another pro, like kudos to my dad, he never forced us to play or go to the park or do anything like that. It's just like that's what we did. We were always around. And when he was coaching high school, coaching at BYU, some of the cons, I think, are baked into how you look at it. And I was always on the defensive of, oh, I'm just here because my dad's the coach, or I'm just here because I have to be here, when really that pressure was just something that I put on myself. Can't control what other people were saying or thinking, but that was one of the biggest cons, I think, was how I perceived that situation at that time. And I hope we get into the kind of the mindset shift that I had, which was a really freeing experience.
So was that mindset shift your junior year, when now you're there because of your own merits and your own, I guess, desires? Before it was, but these perceptions changed with you. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there was going into my junior year, I played really well summer ball, and then I worked with a gentleman whose name is Jeremy Tannehill. He flies Black Hawk helicopters. And he took me through a resilience training that they do in the Army.
Wait, what? How'd you get into this? Where was this?
So I don't know, like confidentiality, but he worked with a couple other now famous baseball players from BYU and totally changed their aura, like how they went about their business. Taylor Cole being one, and I think he would be
played in the majors,
be totally on board with me sharing this.
Yeah.
Is he shifted him from being soft mentally to an absolute stud.
Oh wow! And I should add Blue Jays as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so working with Captain Tannehill was an incredible transforming experience of how I viewed my situation playing for my dad, and then how I viewed my situation now playing for myself and not giving a crap about what other people said. And the two things that I wanted to work on with him were the whole law umbrella thing, and then I got super nervous when we were like winning by 1 in the 9th inning. I didn't want the ball to be hit to me because I was so scared. And we worked through all sorts of different drills and thought processes that helped me work through both those elements, which have impacted me even to today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you hear about this guy? How do you get connected?
I need to ask him, but I believe he reached out to my dad as the coach and said, "Hey, this is what I do. Do you have any players to send to me?" And
interesting.
so he sent him Taylor Cole and Matthew Neal. I don't know if you remember Matthew Neal.
Yeah. He became a stud pitcher.
Yeah. Played professionally for like 10 years, something like that. And if you would have met him the first 1 or 2 years at BYU, and I think Matthew would be on board with me saying this, is like mentally he was soft, just like I was, just like Taylor was. And so my dad saw the transformation of Taylor and Matthew and was like, "Yo, Adam, you want to work with Captain Tannehill?" And I did for like 8 weeks. I mean, I'm waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah. What are you going through here?
Yeah, so horrifying. Absolutely. I am already scared of my situation, and now my dad is having me work with this hardcore Army captain. We called him Captain. I called him Captain Tannehill. I don't even know what his ranking is, but that's just what he wanted me to call him. And so he would take me out to the mountains, and I would be freezing, and he would be breaking me down mentally, saying all sorts of things that I believed about myself, which weren't true, but those dudes just like know how to pick at your mind and play mind games with you and break you down so much that the only way that you can overcome it is to get through those thought processes. And so he would break me down mentally, physically, where I'm doing push-ups where I can't even, I don't know how many push-ups I would do, or just like flutter kicks, sprints, where I was so just broken physically and mentally that then he started to teach me principles that I can get past things that I'm feeling physically and mentally, and just slowly overcame kind of those demons of who I was as a person and as a player, and just was really freeing to now be able to play the game of baseball for myself, not because I was a law or because I was scared of if I didn't play what would happen. Same thing with the late in the game fielding stuff, is like Captain Tannehill helped me understand how to trust my preparation and all the hours and the hundreds of thousands of ground balls that I've taken to, like, what's the difference if you're in the World Series or if you're in your backyard? Like, it's the same skill, just like the context has changed. And those skills I took all the way through my professional career and kind of what I'm teaching our players now.
So you went through like a boot camp that had, sports psychology, mental strength elements to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's a boot camp where really the emphasis is your mental skills and mental strength. I mean, I was taking batting practice in like 10-degree weather, and Captain Tannehill had a microphone or a megaphone right next to my ear, just screaming obscenities while he's having me recite like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or some other children's poem that just to like create all this noise and then still to see me have success. Like I now get what he's doing is I don't need to be thinking about like what I'm doing physically. I've done it so much that it can come naturally, but he was creating all this noise for me to now see that I can do things physically without thinking about it. So yeah, boot camp, teaching resilience and mental skills.
8 weeks.
Is
this like a spring, summer? When is this? Winter?
It was winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your off season. Yeah.
Yeah. December through January, I think, right up until our first game in February.
So was this before your junior year?
Yep.
So you played the summer in Palm Springs. Then that like fall, winter is when this happens?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're feeling good at this point, like, okay, I'm playing with confidence. I've figured some things out mentally. Let's go.
Exactly.
Going into your junior year?
Yep. And another thing that boosted my confidence was I was having almost every major league team had sent me a questionnaire or an inquiry about what my plans were. And so like I knew I was on the radar, and I was really starting to believe in myself.
So you go, you go from walk on for your dad to this point. That's quite the journey. You got to pay it off though, and you do. Your junior year, you're amazing, dude. Do you remember your stats at all? I have them in front of me.
No, I don't. I know that I had a year for the ages, except Chris Bryant, who we all know and love, had a year that put my year to shame. I had a good year, but Chris Bryant was.
Yeah, he's like eventual NL MVP with the Cubs, and they win the World Series. That's another level. You hit 355, slug 508, on base 422. You steal 13 bags, 42 RBIs. You're just awesome, man. You start all 49 games. The year before, by the way, you're hitting 228. You're doing your thing.
Yeah.
220 is not terrible. It's above the Mendoza line.
Right.
But 355, you just like explode. At what point during that season are you like, hey, this is working? Like, I'm playing at this level, and I've figured some things out, and like, hey, I got a shot here at playing at the next level.
I think, honestly, Coach Littlewood and Coach Pratt, I was shocked when I saw the first lineup card and I was hitting third. I was always a speed guy, like get on base, you hit first or second. And to see Coach Littlewood put that belief in me really meant a lot. And now I'm thinking, wow, I'm a guy, like I can hit for some power now. I have some thump. And like I had good games and maybe I had a bad game and I was still hitting third the next day. And just kind of that consistency really made me feel confident that he believed in me, and then I believed in myself, and then knew that something good was going to happen.
And it went really well that year. That team was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
That was a good BYU baseball team.
Yeah, it was awesome. We qualified for the conference tournament. First time that it happened in some years, and after a tough year as a team in 2012, it was really cool to bounce back.
So 2013 happens. You have a fantastic season. Major League Draft happens. Walk us through sort of that process, because this is the draft that people pay the least attention to, because it's 40 rounds, and it's like who'd they pick from where and how? It's crazy. You end up being what, a 12th rounder?
Yep.
To the Dodgers.
Yeah.
What's that experience like? How's the phone call? What's the negotiating the signing bonus? The whole deal.
Yeah, so really fun experience. My draft plan was to either be drafted in the top 10 rounds and sign for less than slot or the allotted signing bonus that they give you, just so that I could say that I was a top 10 round draft pick, which helps kind of in your progression through the minor leagues. Is, oh, he's a top 10 round guy. Or it was to get drafted after the top 10 rounds, but still sign for the maximum amount of money. And the Dodgers, I was fortunate, most of the teams that reached out to me kind of gauged how much money I wanted, if I was going to sign. I was a junior. I was an older junior at age 23. Because of my mission, I took 2 years off, but still had some leverage of saying, hey, like, I can still come back for my senior year, so you need to meet this amount of money, whatever. But I felt really good about the Dodgers. And Dustin Yount, who was a scout in Utah at the time, really, really liked what he had to say about the organization. I knew that he liked me as a player. And so come draft day, it was the third day. They do like the first round on day 1, rounds 2 to 10 on day 2, and then 12 to 40 on day 3. But Dustin called me on day 2 and said, hey, we're not going to take you in the top 10 rounds, but we're going to meet your dollar amount that you want on day 3. Is this something that you're good with? And I felt really good about it, told him yes. And then he said, okay, now call the other 29 teams and tell them that you're not going to sign. So I don't know
29 phone calls.
I don't know if I called or texted. I probably just copied and pasted and sent text to all the other scouts that said, hey, thanks for your inquiry, or like for your interest in me, but I figured something else out. And that's kind of how it played out. I remember, I think my dad was actually the bench coach for the White Sox. And so he was watching the draft with all of the White Sox in June, and pretty cool. They all were all pumped up when my name was called and the phone call came, I was actually at BYU taking batting practice because I was so nervous when they
went
called.
to your happy place?
Yeah, and then I hurried and hopped on my little scooter and went home, and my mom and I shared that moment together, which was really cool.
This was back when scooters were cooler as well, probably, right?
Exactly.
There was a time, like, when I was in school, when you were in high school, scooters were the rage. 08, summer of 08 was like the scooter summer, man. Now they're not as popular, but that's okay. Do you still have the scooter?
I don't. I sold it.
See,
I wish I didn't.
I'm telling you, the era's over.
Yeah, I wish I
rare.
didn't, but
I know. A scooter was super fun.
yeah.
I love that you're taking BP. You're just like, you know what? This is where I can clear the mechanism.
Exactly.
To make a baseball movie reference here. That's awesome. Okay, so you get drafted. Yep, you go right to the majors. That's not how it works, right? What that journey is a hard one. Kind of walk me through being a minor league baseball player.
Yeah. I wish I would have had the education of what it actually is prior to getting drafted.
That was me before a mission too.
All of us before a mission.
I was like, wait, what is it? No, it was different than I thought, but it was the hardest, most amazing, gratifying, terrible, amazing experience I've ever had. It's both ends, right? And it seems like the minors was too.
For sure. I think the numbers, it's like 8% of guys who are drafted play a day in the major leagues.
8%.
8%.
Wow.
And of that 8%, it's like 6% are first rounders. So if you're not drafted in the first round, you have a 2% chance to step a foot on a major league field. So props to Jacob Brugman, Jacob Hanneman, and Taylor Cole for beating the odds. But of course, all of us who are drafted don't think, oh, I'm going to be the 90% that doesn't touch a major league field. That thought doesn't even cross your mind. So I didn't know that there were 6 levels in the minor leagues. I thought we had AAA, AA, and single A.
Yep.
I didn't know of the 2 levels of rookie ball, the 2 levels of single A, and then AA, AAA. I didn't know that you played every day.
You didn't know you played every day?
I didn't. No. I don't know how I didn't know that. I knew you played every day in the major leagues, but I didn't know that you played 140 games in 150 days in the minor leagues, where stretches of like 24 games straight, something absurd. Yeah,
in college it's like 4 days a week. You play a Tuesday and then 3 on the week.
And then you play your weekend games, but in pro ball it's you're going all out. And the hardest part, I think, was because you're playing every day. If you string like 3 games in a row where you don't get a hit and you're 0 for 12 or you're 0 for 15, that takes a serious mental toll to go out and do it again the next day. And then if you don't get a hit, you got to do it again the next day. And then you pray that your manager gives you a day off. But then there's also not a better feeling of when you're going good and your last 20 at-bats, you got 10 hits or something like that. But kind of the ups and the downs took me a couple years to, not tie my value as a human to my performance, because that was something that's really easy to do when you're playing every day, is like, oh, if I'm 0 for 4, then I'm a crappy person. But if I'm 4 for 4, I'm the king of the world. And so trying to separate those two, who I am as a player and who I am as a person, took a couple years. And then just learning to deal with failure was the proverbial Hall of Famers fail 70% of the time. They hit 300, which it rings really true. And learning to navigate those ups and downs I was 23, 24. Other kids are 18, 19, first time away from home. Luckily, I was a returned missionary and had done my thing for 2 years. Yeah, it was. Then you pray for a promotion, that you get called up to high A or double A or triple A, and then pray that you don't get sent down. And then your buddies are getting released and you can't do anything about it. And then your buddies are getting called up to the big leagues and you're so happy for them, but deep down you wish that it was you. And then it's the off season and you take a break and then go do it again the next year. Is so much fun, but really, really hard to do.
How many years did you play again?
I played six seasons and was released in my 7th.
And it was my Mariners that released you. I'm still not over that. Okay, one spring training, I was in Arizona hanging out at my mom's place, and I went to a game where the Mariners played the Cubs. You played for the Mariners before the game. you came over and said hi, and we chatted for a minute. That was super cool. And then Jacob Hanneman, former BYU guy, was on the Cubs, and you both got a hit in that game. We took a picture after. That was a pretty cool experience for me to be like, look at these guys doing their thing. It was a pretty cool day.
Really, really cool experience for the three of us, I think, and for the BYU ties that bring us together. And like, we're in were we in Surprise or no? We were in Mesa. Yeah,
yep.
at the Cubs
Little
place.
Wrigley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for you to come support us and show us some love was so cool. But yeah, the fact that both of us got a hit, that we both played on the same day, spring training, there's so many moving parts, but there the three Cougars stood on the side on the field and took a picture. It was really cool.
That was pretty awesome. And I was super proud of you, yeah. Okay, so the teams you played for, you're going to have to pronounce some of these because I think you went international here.
Yeah.
Arizona Fall League, of course. That's where you kind of start out. Ogden Raptors, single A, right?
That's rookie ball, the second level of rookie ball.
Okay. Rancho Cucamonga.
Which is high A. I was fortunate to skip low A. So, yes, Rancho Cucamonga, high A.
Tulsa Drillers, double A.
Yes.
All Dodgers here.
Yep.
And then you go to the Mariners. Was that a trade released?
Trade.
Trade.
Yes. I was traded for $1.
Are you serious?
I kid you not. You want to know the story there?
Let's hear it. I wish we had time on this podcast, Adam.
Sorry.
We have all the time in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that time, the Dodgers had gone through a leadership change, and Gabe Kapler, who is now the manager of the Giants, was our farm director. And I now revere the guy. Like, I can't think of a better leader, a better culture creator than Gabe. But as a player, I was kind of put on the shelf. I was more of an old school, play hard, steal bases, hit for average. But Gabe brought in the new school, which was power numbers, walks, strikeouts, and slug. Or, power.
Exit velo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't fit that bill. And so I was kind of put on the shelf as a minor league player and fell off the prospects list, if you will.
Yeah. Which, like every Baseball America puts out a list.
Exactly.
The top 40. I'm always scouring the BYU guys on these lists. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're not on there.
So I'm not on there.
Ah.
And in a conversation that I had, like, man to man, was Gabe, like, I feel like I can play in the big leagues. And he was always honest, which I appreciate. The honest truth hurt was he said, you're not going to play in the big leagues for the Dodgers. Your best bet with us is to kind of be a backup minor league guy when we have guys get hurt, fill in. He's like, there's a couple things that I can do for you is you can stay with us for sure. You have a job, insurance, whatever, or I can send out an email to all 29 teams and say that you are available for trade. So I thought about it, talked with my dad, with my agent, and we felt that was the best course of action to see if there's any interest out there and another opportunity. And the Mariners reached out to Gabe, the farm director, Andy McKay, who is still the farm director for the Mariners. Said, we like him. We like his makeup. We like what he can do on the field. And so the acquisition happened, and for the paper trail, I was traded for $1. I actually, since I became an employee of the Dodgers, you can go back and look at all that stuff. So I looked at my trade. My heart sank a little bit when I saw it was for $1.
Wait, you didn't know till later?
I had no idea. I honestly,
I was probably traded for like top 5 guys.
I honestly thought that I was part of the Chris Taylor trade.
Yes.
As a player to be named later. That's what I thought.
You thought you were the player to be named later?
Yeah.
Ah.
Which is like kind of pumps up your ego. It's like, wow, Chris Taylor's turned into a guy. But
he was when he succeeded with the Dodgers when they won the World Series, I was like, little tear came out. I was like, ex-Mariner.
Exactly. But I was not traded for Chris Taylor. I was traded for $1.
$1. Ugh. I really want you to just put up $1 in your house and be like, this is what I was traded for. Yeah. It's got a little, the transaction data. You should do that. Just like as a motivator. I think that'd be really funny. Okay, so when you're traded to the Mariners, I'm like, yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Adam Law's a Mariner. I actively follow what's going on. BYU Sports Nation, it's been fun this spring, summer. We're tracking the guys in the minors. This is great. So every day, hey, Adam Law had 2 hits against the whoever's. You're playing for the Arkansas Travelers, Double A. That's fun. Then do you go to the Dominican Republic or something? Where do you go?
So I go to Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Yes.
Oh, how about that?
Was an unbelievable, the funnest
During the summer.
during the winter.
The winter.
Yes,
Right. You're
so
busy during the summer playing in the minors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a winter league where all of the Venezuelan players, the major league players, the minor league players, they go and play for their hometown teams. And
that's fun.
each team is
Like all the way up, like Felix Hernandez all the way up?
yes, all of the studs.
Oh, wow.
And each team is allowed 4 import players. So in Venezuela, you can come in from Cuba, from the Dominican, from the States. And I was fortunate I had a really good year in AA, and one of the Cardinales de Lara was the team in Venezuela. And
The Cardinals of Lara?
Of Lara, yeah. And so they offered me a contract to play down there, and it is a wild experience. It is
You went on a second mission.
yes. I mean,
But baseball.
like it's a massive fiesta the entire game. There's just drums there. The loudspeakers are constantly playing. You hear like the announcers are. I mean, when you hit a home run, they're saying home run at your entire trip around the bases.
Like it's a goal in soccer.
Exactly.
Is it below the equator? Remind me.
Yeah, it's in the Caribbean.
So it's the summer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There it's the summer.
Beautiful weather.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're an absolute celebrity. Like, I could not walk around without people running up, asking. I felt like Jimmer Fredette or Taysom Hill in the States, and it was really cool. Yeah, that was the funnest time I've ever had playing baseball.
Really?
And I think I would imagine major league players who play in the Dominican or in Venezuela would likely say the same thing unless they've played in the major league playoffs.
That kind of environment. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
The energy.
The energy is, I mean, it's no, in the States, you kind of sit back. If your team scores, you go up, you give a guy a high five. But over there, I mean, if you score, everybody's out on the field dancing. It is so much fun, so much energy.
Did you go again? Because I saw you played for another team.
Yes. So then that same winter, I was traded to Yaquis de Obregón in Mexico.
What's the dollar there? Is it it's not a peso? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a peso.
So you were traded for a peso again?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I actually don't know how they figure out those transactions in the Winter League.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went to Mexico and played.
You went to Mexico now?
Yeah, so that league, my second league for the Yaquis, is in Mexico. And what happens is at the end of the Winter League, the champion from Mexico, the champion from Venezuela, the champion from Puerto Rico, the champion from the Dominican, they all play in a massive series called
Champions League.
Exactly. It's called the Caribbean Series.
Yeah, it's the Champions League
Exactly.
of baseball in the Caribbean. That's great.
So
That's fun.
neither of my teams won, and so I went home once the season ended, and then they all went together and played in the Caribbean Series. But Venezuela was way more fun than Mexico. Mexico was still cool, and the stadiums were nicer and a little more first-class treatment while at the park. But, I mean, playing in Venezuela, those people live and die for baseball and live and die for their local team.
That
Pretty
sounds
cool.
so fun.
Yeah.
That's gnarly. Okay, so then, you make it up to AAA. You're with the Tacoma Rainiers, which, for those who don't know, is obviously most of the time there's a ton of traffic, but 30 to 45 minutes away from Seattle.
Yeah.
There's a chance on any given afternoon or morning you get a call, and then that night you might be with the Mariners if they're home. How close did you get? Because I was always ready that if you got the call, I might be booking a plane ticket to go see you play for my Mariners.
Yeah.
I always thought, okay, if Adam makes it, I'm going to go to that game.
That's a good question. I was really close when I was first promoted to AAA and was absolutely on fire the second half of the year. Never got the call that year. I did ask the manager on our final game because they when the rosters expand to 40, which that rule is done away with now, but back then you could have 40 guys on your major league roster in September call-ups. We've all heard that phrase.
And that's a good time for a player like you in that situation.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But at the time, all the September call-ups have gone up, and I was finishing out the last 5 or 6 games in the minor leagues. So on the last day, I went in and talked to the manager, said, hey, thanks. What would you like to see me work on this offseason? Just kind of winding down the season. So he told me a couple things, but then said, I want you to know that you were the guy when Scott Service had called, or the Jerry DePoto, the general manager, had called that said, hey, we need a guy who's on fire. You were the guy that I was telling them. And for whatever reason, I wasn't actually picked. And I'm not asking for it's not a moral victory. It's not, but we only lost by 7. And then, no, I am not a major league player, but to be in those conversations and then at least to hear about it is cool to hear.
I wanted so bad for you to be up.
Makes 2 of us.
How have you sort of reconciled those feelings of wanting that? Because that's the most validating day potentially in your career of I made it. But also hey, you had a fun, enjoyable, hopefully, experience there. How do you sort of reconcile those feelings?
Oh, man. I think when I'm able to completely reconcile them, I'll let you know.
You haven't?
No, it's
still dealing with it.
Yeah. And I think if you talk to anybody who played an extended amount of time in the minor leagues and was that close, who never got the call, it still hurts. And I think that's pretty common across the board. Though I did have a cool experience. So I had a decent year in AAA where I talked to the manager, and so I go into spring training the next year and had a pretty good spring training and make the AAA team out of spring training again. So now I really think I'm on the verge of making it to the big leagues. I'm starting the year in AAA. My wife and I, just newly married, get an apartment in Tacoma once again. And our first series is on the road in Sacramento. I think it was the Giants AAA team at the time. Bought a suit coat, always wanted to have a suit coat on me in case they called me up so I could, get straight with the big team and look the part. Anyways, go into our home park to catch the bus to the airport to start the AAA season. And the manager calls me into his office. Pause. During spring training, I talked with the farm director, and he's like, hey, yeah, we like you. We like you as a player. You add value to our organization. You have a job for this year. Now, I get things change, but that was the message that was told to me. So I get called into the manager's office before we're about to leave for our first game of the AAA season in 2019. When you get called into the manager's office, 2 things can happen. 1, you're getting called up to the big leagues, or 2, you're getting released.
What an emotional knife on an edge moment.
Yeah. And based on the conversation that I had with our farm director, I honestly thought I was going to the big leagues. I was walking into his office, I'm thinking in my mind, oh my gosh, I got to call my dad. I got to call my grandpa.
I got to call Jarom.
I got to call Jarom. Jarom's going to meet me for the first game.
I'm going to go to the game.
Exactly. I get to call my wife and walk in. The manager sits me down and says, we're releasing you of your contract. And then you talk about a flood of emotions where I was not expecting that. I had been promised this, whatever. I get that things change, and we had traded for the big club had traded for a catcher, and so they needed to send a catcher down to AAA. I was kind of the last guy in, and I was released. Anyways, for the next 2 or 3 months, I tried to link up with other teams. Nothing happened. And back to the reconciliation of feelings was I would always go around, Mariners released me. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing with my life. Mariners released me, and the power of that decision was on the Mariners. It was, oh, poor me, the Mariners did this to me. And I had a cousin who helped me reframe that. Sure, the Mariners released me, but I made the decision to retire. I had some chances to play internationally, to play independent ball, but it was ultimately my decision to retire. And sure, it wasn't my decision to step away from the Mariners, but I made the decision to retire, and now it just brings the ownership to me, where it's not, nobody else has control of what I'm doing with my life. And that's been huge in how I've reconciled the whole situation. Is like, it's me, it's not anybody else that did it to me. And to the farm directors who promised me that I'd have a job the rest of the year, I get that stuff happens, especially in pro ball. So I hold nothing against him. He and I are still friends. And
Andy McKay,
yeah, he's kind of guided me down my current path.
Because I'm a Mariners fan, I know all the names of these people. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's rough, man. That's
really
so
rough.
Tough.
Yeah.
You probably signed some kind of contract with a house, and
yeah.
I think about all the logistics of a situation when someone goes through a thing. Like, did you have family nearby? Did you have enough money after that saved up? It's like that's difficult. So, what went into the decision to retire?
Basically, no other major league team had a job for me in the minor leagues. I think a couple teams wanted me to play in AA, and I'd done that for 3 or 4 years. Like, I was ready to either play in AAA with a chance to make it up or not. And then independent ball is, though a good competition, if you play in it, it's even harder to get back to minor league baseball and then up to the big leagues. So I didn't entertain that idea. Still had some schooling left, and yeah, so that's kind of what went into it. Was didn't have the right opportunity that I felt like I needed to become a major leaguer, and made the decision to hang it up.
And because it was year and a half, 2 years, well, I guess 2.5 years ago, maybe a year and a half, you're still dealing with those feelings. That's still raw and real.
This is actually one of the first times that I've talked about it.
Oh, wow.
So this is really therapeutic and good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
Thank
really
you
good.
for talking about it, because I know that's super difficult. But part of the reason I want to do the show is like, yeah, people have real issues and real feelings, and not everything is just hunky-dory, amazing. Yep. And it was hard and I hated it.
Yeah,
or I had to learn this, and I had to go through this, and I'm still going through this. So I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, so once you make the choice to retire from baseball, you mentioned school. Did you go back to BYU? I know you did something on like a ranch in Texas or something.
Yeah, so right as I was released, I had not yet made the decision to retire. The same cousin who helped me reframe my thought process has a big old ranch in Texas. And he's like, hey, why don't you and Hannah, my wife, come down there? We'll put you to work, and you can figure out what you want to do.
What kind of work are we talking about? Because you're a kid from Provo who hasn't worked on a ranch, right?
Correct. I did it all, man. I was mucking stalls.
What does that mean?
Like cleaning out poop from horse stalls, from chicken coops, getting eggs. I was mowing the hay fields. I was doing woodwork. I was doing metal work, feeding animals. Like, I was doing it all. Like, what you think about work on a ranch, that's what I was doing.
Wow.
And I had an awesome mentor, kind of the head honcho there, Roberto Moreno, kind of took me under his wing and taught me all sorts of stuff that I otherwise would not have learned.
Do you live on the ranch?
Yeah, so my cousin's house is on the ranch, and they had a little side house where my wife and I stayed, and so it was hard work, man. Really hard work.
Why did you choose this? Like, after you're done grinding in the minors, you go from hard thing to hard thing.
Yeah. I didn't really have anything else, if I'm being honest. I didn't want to go bury my head in a cage and teach hitting lessons. This was stable. This was away. This was, I could talk with people if I wanted to. I mean, you kind of go, I wasn't depressed, but like sometimes you just don't want to talk about, especially when it was so fresh. And my identity, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but my identity was tied a lot to who I was as a player. And so now I'm going to come home to Provo, and everybody's going to be like, wait, aren't you supposed to be playing right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to deal with that at the time. I also was newly married, no money, and this was a chance to make some money and save up. And also my cousin and his wife and their family are awesome.
This cousin was super influential, it feels like.
Huge. Yeah, he's huge, even now. And just like, yo, you do what you want to do, and we'll support you. And, yeah, so.
You needed that experience.
Needed that big time. Yeah.
That's super interesting because you could have totally buried your head. But in a way, you could sort of isolate and forget yourself and go to work, if you will. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
It feels so hard what you did there.
Yeah. I mean, I had very little time to think about my situation because I was worrying about, are the horses brushed or are the pigs fed? Like, I had no time to think about my situation. Sure, I was reaching out, or my agent was doing work and trying to find a place to play, but I would lift in the mornings and then work for 10 hours and be so tired, eat, go to sleep, and do it again the next day and hope for a phone call.
How long did you do this?
This was April through like the first week of August. May,
so it's
June, July.
like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Hard labor.
It's
probably hot.
And humid. Hot and humid in Texas. Yeah. It's right outside of Austin in a place called Salado.
I think I've heard of it.
Interestingly enough, the ranch, he's called it La La Land Ranch.
Nice. I like that. I like the movie. Okay, you've had 2 experiences now where you needed this super hard thing to help you physically, mentally go into the next stage. It was like this transition moment for you. Did you realize it was this in the moment? Because it feels like that was a formative experience for you.
Yeah, it was definitely formative. I didn't realize it in the moment. I was just...
Do we ever, I guess? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I was just kind of rolling with the punches. And yeah.
Okay, so what have you been up to since then? So this is summer of 2019?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had chipped away at my degree at BYU in the off seasons. I had 1 more semester left. Came back to BYU in the fall of 2019 and finished my undergraduate degree.
Congrats.
Thank you. Prior to the start of the semester, check that. The day I was released, the Dodgers called me. And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to have a job for me now to play. And the gentleman said, we don't have a job for you to play, but we have something that might interest you when and if you decide to stop playing.
The Dodgers still liked you.
Yes.
As a person.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought they wanted me to be a coach, and that is not what I want to do. So I just kind of put it on the back burner, thought about what I wanted to do, which was the mental skills route. I don't know if you know Justin Sua.
I called games with Justin Sua.
Of course
at
you
BYU.
did.
He has a son named Jarom.
Exactly.
Not after me, of course. But I love Justin Sua. He's become big time.
Yeah.
Browns, Red Sox, Rays. He's huge. BYU grad.
He is probably the top dog in the mental skills performance psychology field.
And oh, by the way, Craig Manning was at BYU. He's with the Bucks now, who just won the NBA title.
Exactly.
So some BYU connections in this field.
So I called Justin. This is still the summer. I was actually at a water park with my cousins and picking his brain about what he does and how to get to where he is. So we talk about graduate school. I'm lucky because I have a professional playing background, which is highly desired in the profession as well, and decide that I'm going to go the mental skills performance psychology route. So I go back to school. I call the Dodgers, thinking that maybe they have an opportunity for me to work in performance psychology department or the front office, which also intrigued me. And I just say, hey, I'm calling you about our conversation we had in April. And he's like, yeah, we would love to figure something out for you and what you want to do, but here's what we have in mind. And then they asked me, how would you feel about growing the game globally? I'm like, growing the game globally, what does that mean? And they're like, we want to have an impact in Africa.
Oh, wow.
And again,
kudos. Did they know you'd gone on a mission there?
Yeah.
Okay. They knew you had a connection.
So they knew my connection to Africa as a missionary fact, I had spoken my mission languages during spring training, and everybody loved it. And
that's cool.
So they knew that. They knew that my degree was in sociology and that I kind of have a tender heart for human beings, and thought that it would be a great fit. So agreed to work with them in their international operations department, and did some work in Africa, in the Dominican, and then stateside as well. But again, my plan was to go down the sports psychology route. So I finished my degree, immediately enroll in an online performance psychology master's degree program, and went full on and finished that just this past June. Finished my master's degree while I've been working full time with the Dodgers in the international operations department, as well as in the mental skills department, working with players, staff members, and such. And that kind of brings me to where I am today. I'm pumped. I am going to be transitioning all in with the mental skills guys and kind of leaving the international stuff to our current workers, and still going to have a hand there because it means a lot to me, but also like really excited to go all in with my passion.
That's amazing. I wake up to an Adam Law tweet every day where you talk about something in the mental strength game. It's awesome. And it's an underrated part of the game. I think like 10 years ago, it was like, what is this? And now it's like every team has somebody attached to this. It's so important. Like you've talked about the difference it made on your career. And everyone needs that. It's like, the stigmas around therapy. It's like, no. It's good for everybody. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs to work on that part. So what have you learned about sort of mental health, that those basics and the kind of difference they can have on athletes, and then for those listening that aren't competing at a professional level, like the application for life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've noticed particularly that it's becoming a little bit more normalized to talk about. Like the stuff that I went through or experienced, playing under the umbrella with my dad, or being scared to catch a ground ball late in the game. That stuff still exists even at the major league level, and guys are having those feelings. And so to have a designated worker or coach or specialist, if whatever you want to call them, there to help a player through those challenges, through what he's feeling of tying his self-worth to how he performed on the mound or how he performed at the plate, and being able to make that distinction is huge. And then in a like a non-sport sense as well, like all these skills can be applied to help you be more efficient in your workday, or to be more present with your family. All the skills that we're working on with our athletes, we hope that they will also translate to who they are off the field, and the same skills that I'm working on myself as well.
That's awesome. It's really important. Yeah, that stuff. Follow Adam on Twitter if you don't already. Remind me, what is it?
Adam Law 217.
What's the 217?
21 was my high school basketball number, and 7 was my baseball number.
Okay, 217. I thought it might be an area code or something.
No.
I'm not even sure where 217 is. 208 would have been Seattle, I think, right?
Yeah, 208.
Something like that. Yeah. Well, awesome, man. It's great to catch up with you. Congratulations on all the success and getting in with the Dodgers, and international development is super cool, and mental strength is awesome too. So we look forward to following what you do there. Follow him on Twitter so you get those amazing daily thoughts. And then you played for my Mariners. I know they cut you late. I'm so sad about it still, but it was pretty
too.
It was pretty cool to see you in the unique teal, green and
so
and white,
awesome.
And the green, hey, back to the Provo days.
Exactly.
It's not the same green. But okay, let's end with this. I thought one day that I would be so smart, Adam, and I would reconcile both fan bases to me. I wore a green tie with an orange shirt to a Provo Tempe game, and everybody hated me. They were all like, boo! You know that gif? Boo this man!
Yes.
That was everyone to me, and I thought, I ticked off both sides. I thought I was going to bring him in. I forced him out. Felt like a freaking idiot.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so, I don't even remember who won that night. I just remember being embarrassed. Jeez. So shout out to those people who booed a college kid wearing a weird combo. Anyway, Adam, our journey has been a long time together. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Jarom. I really appreciate it.
Okay, that'll do it for us. Listen to previous episodes on the BYU Radio app or where podcasts are found. For Adam Law and producer Corbin Radford, I'm Jarom Jordan. You've just listened to Deep Blue on BYU Radio.